Good evening, respected dignitaries in the dais. In order to save time for my 10 minutes so that I don't get a chit at the end of the time, I'm not taking each one of your names, pardon me for that. I'll straight get into the topic. I commend the effort that Vinay ji and his team have made in getting this book, bringing it together and publishing it. The title is very evocative of what exactly we are trying to look at. He's given it a title, The Art of Implementation. I want to say that the art of good governance gets captured in everything that is written here. Art of implementation is a major part of good governance. So, in looking at implementation, he's actually referring to a larger issue of the good governance itself. And in the implementation is the difference between Prime Minister Modi and probably even many other prime ministers whose intentions would have been to do good and also to execute a lot of programs. But here are we talking about the unique feature of implementation within a given span of time by Prime Minister Modi. I'll just want to place a template before you for your consideration. The way in which last 10 years have passed, surely I can say that Prime Minister Modi right from 2014 had a larger overall picture of how he wanted to, and he continues to have that thought, to make India future ready. But it's not a static point of, yes, you do this, therefore India is future ready. It's a dynamic thing. It is future ready as of 2014 with certain things, and it gets built over like that. So when in 2014 you looked at what was there before him, surely a lot of fundamental infrastructure, fundamental basic amenities which have to be available for the country and for the people were not in place. So one of the things that I'll put as, let's say, three silos in which you're looking at the entire country, the Prime Minister would have laid before us is look at all those pending projects, whether they are pending for decades, whether they are pending for years, whether they are pending for just 1 or 2 years. Look at all of them. Be sure you're going to complete all of them. And till then, don't even come up with anything new. For instance, as an example, I'm saying this, even the usually tempting example for every MP is to approach the rail minister or road minister and say, please, this stretch of railway line has been pending, I want it completed, but then I have a new destination for which we want connectivity, so please sanction that. So the large thumb rule there was, get everything that has been promised, irrespective of who had given the promise, from the first government in India to today. And saying the first government in India is not an exaggeration. There are n number of projects which were promised then, promised a bit later, and so on, and which were lying without completion. And I'll take this example of the Kollam bypass, which is in Kerala, which had waited more than 4 decades, if I'm right. Let me just look into the paper and give you the exact. 5 decades. A bypass to connect Kollam town was lying undone, unfinished for over 5 decades. It was announced in 72. Approval and everything else was done. Foundation was laid. It wasn't done. So that is one extreme example. I can give you a few more like that. The Sarayu irrigation canal in Bihar was announced in 78. Kosi Rail Mahasetu, Bihar, 2003. Bogibeel Rail Cum Road Bridge, 1997. Atal Tunnel, Himachal Pradesh, 2000. And Eastern and Western Peripheral Expressway, 2006. I've just given you a random example of those big ticket projects which make a big difference for that region, having been announced so early, hadn't been completed. it was completed under Prime Minister Modi. So one of the things that I want to place before you is completion of, irrespective of when it was announced, complete those and then talk about new things. Second, look at saturation. Why electricity in some states is not reached even 60 kilometers away from the headquarters of that state? Why wouldn't you want to take it there? Get going with that, reach saturation. So complete pending projects, reach everyone who's supposed to be getting the benefit of that, the second silo. And third, this approach about which Lieutenant Governor of J&K spoke, the idea of aspirational districts. So this strong belief that Prime Minister has that India's growth is going to be held back even if there is one state or one district which lies without progressing. And here he didn't mind the party which is in rule in that state or the governance which is happening over the last few decades in that state. He said if that one aspirational district, which technically was a backward district. The attitude of Prime Minister Modi is not to call any region backward because it's not their fault. But they also are aspiring to be as developed as anybody else within that state or in the country. So he gave a very motivating name and said, come, even that has to. All right. If I've said about the 3 buckets, he didn't leave it to others. He said, you also do, I'll also keep a watch. And literally every month by holding a video conference with those respective collectors or the DCs of those districts, he took pains for himself to sit and watch and talk to a district collector, the Prime Minister, in direct conversation with the district collector to say, where are we? Why are you not progressing? Do you want me to do something more? Get going with it. Now, if this is the way in which he made sure that projects announced earlier, projects which are being announced during his tenure, are getting implemented at the last delivery point. Now, also there are discussions about how bureaucracy, however well-intended they would have been, to execute it at the speed at which Prime Minister wants this completed. It's not for himself. It is to say, come on, this is waited for long. It has to be finished. And if it has to be finished, all our mindsets should be in executing it. The mission Karma Yogi, which he brought about and sat with officials, holds DGP conference to say how to go about, policing the state, holds administrative officers meetings to say why should we be a lot more open-minded in getting projects and getting the government's governance agenda taken forward. Completely different approach to the training of officers in the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, where bureaucrats, once clearing their IAS, go there to get trained. The approach to training itself in Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy has been today looked at from what the Prime Minister has said in the Mission Karma Yogi, where IAS, IPS, all other revenue service and every other bureaucrat is told to be a lot more agile, move forward, be open-minded, be transparent in your decision. So there is not one area in governance, and all this in a country which prides itself about, and rightly so, prides itself about federal structure. You don't want to tread onto somebody's toes. So states and their responsibilities are being respected, but yet I'm sorry, we'll have to move fast because unless everybody grows, we are not going to be able to achieve that kind of a speed with which we can aim to get everybody developed. That is why when you see Prime Minister speaking about every region, he talks about the eastern part of India. It's not as if, I know these states can develop and they are going fast, I'll help them. BJP, no BJP. There are certain sections of welfare schemes reaching people, whether it is gas, whether it is drinking water through pipe, electricity. There too. But the larger economy of some states which need that additional support. Otherwise, why choose all those public sector fertilizer producing companies which are located in eastern India? Barauni, Singrauli, all that being developed with new gas connection being given so that efficiency of production can increase, and this focus on East to be the powerful engine to pull the entire country is a different approach to East. East is not going to be as some, this is a bit of a sensitive point, but I would say a misguided argument sometimes gets posed from states which are developed, and let's say even states which come from the south, saying why are we funding slowly developing the eastern states, Bihar or Jharkhand or Orissa and so on. The approach Prime Minister takes on that is no, even those states with all the endowment that they have, the people who want to aspire and grow fast, they need my support. I will extend it. And I will do things in order to lift the state so that they become the engine of growth. We are not supporting them for, providing crutches. We are giving them that energy with which, because they have the endowment, they can pull the new India's engine. So that's the approach. I think what is important here is not just us talking about what has been implemented. I'll just take the example of the Jan Dhan, of course, people did speak about. At that time, 2014, I was still in the Ministry of Finance as MOS. I know the kind of criticism which was thrown at Prime Minister, saying, oh, what is this Jan Dhan account? You're creating accounts for people with zero balance. Banks will have to put money to service them. You're burdening the banks. Prime Minister was very clear, no, I want everybody to have their accounts. And in that, a bit later, Honorable former Chief Minister Manohar Khattar spoke about how Haryana was the leading light in Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. I'll also credit Haryana for one more thing. The actual benefit of DBT first emerged from Haryana. DBT actually helped government to save money from pilferage, save money from going to ghost accounts, save money from going to all those not entitled people who were probably just, my cousins, my brothers, my jija, whoever. And money was going to them. By having the biometric Aadhaar validation and payment into the account directly, and that payment going through an Aadhaar bridge, so that no duplicate Aadhaar will be used to say, I also have Aadhaar, but take my money away. That experiment from Haryana showed that within 1 year, you could save anywhere between 80,000 crore to 1 lakh, was based on a sample there in Haryana DBT. But today, because of the DBT model, and because everybody has a Jan Dhan account, the eligible beneficiary gets the money with Aadhaar validation, not just holding an Aadhaar card. Or a person can have 3 Aadhaar cards. No, all 3 don't get it. There's only one account to which a validated Aadhaar is linked, and that person gets it on that. And there's nobody else who takes it in your name. So that kind of verification using technology has resulted in more than 2.2 lakh crores saved from pilferage. And after all, that money is not going to be sitting idle. It will be ploughed back to give more welfare or bring in more people into this beneficiary scheme of things. So today, when I was talking to you about the Jan Dhan accounts. So banks are going to be burdened. Why do you want to do this? We saw the DBT and its benefit. But today, those very Jan Dhan accounts, people see the value of putting some money as saving into those accounts, have a balance as of 31st March 2024, 2,34,997 crores total. What have you done by getting these people whose, criticism was zero balance wala? Today, they have saved 2,34,997 crore. So banks have that absorption today of that much of money coming from these zero balance people. So you just had to give them that enabling provision of, yes, you come open your account. Now, therefore, I just want to say, every time Prime Minister Modi's schemes are brought in, and if there are studies periodically done by independent agencies, you get to know the ripple effect or the collateral benefits that arise out of such projects. Bank, I told you about the DBT, I told you about how I will tell you about how during COVID, it helped us to reach, whether it was a 500 rupee per month for 3 months or 1,500 for those people to have their household basic expenditure taken care of. We could reach, not very many developed countries could reach, because we had done the Jan Dhan account. And you had a mechanism of DBT. So like that, you can go on listing the benefits. Benefit of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. A Prime Minister talking from Red Fort about keep your streets clean, give toilet facility, keep water from wastage. We thought, what is he really meaning? I'll tell you the list of studies which have come out since after the implementation of Swachh Bharat. It was implemented in October 2014. September 2014 was Jan Dhan account. 2014 again was Swachh Bharat. Look at the continuous interest various organizations have taken in that scheme, because they thought Prime Minister is talking about it, kya hoga, dekh lenge, with a sense probably, and I'm attributing it, with a sense of curiosity rather than seeing the virtue of it. 2017 there was a study by IMF, 18 WHO, 18 UNICEF, 20 UNICEF once in March, 2020 UNICEF again with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. All of them kept studying the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and its collateral benefits if it is actually giving it. People who built toilets, one of the studies says, putting their own money, taking some loan, could pay back within 2 years because their participation in the workforce has increased by 10%. One of the findings. Another finding says, extreme situation of diarrhea has been completely removed. Look at the impact it can have on a poor person's life. Then, 3 lakh deaths have been avoided annually because you've attended to Swachh Bharat, kind of a, both clean water, good toilet. 3 lakh poor people's lives on an every year basis has been saved. These are studies which have been done by outside, globally reputed institutions. Now that is the impact of every one of the scheme which, because of the art of implementation, works. He himself monitors it. Ministers are told to periodically review. You're able to see India moving in that kind of a pace. And I would think the paucity of that kind of an attention to implementation in the last several decades have all been so clearly taken care of. I'm just curious to put one more such example, which actually has a bearing on the middle class, lower middle class, the poorer people. And again here, I would say with a bit of a tone on politicizing it. It was a scheme started in 2008, not by Prime Minister Modi. It was named by that government then, 2008. And the promise given was, in every district, there will be one Jan Aushadhi Kendra, 2008. When in 2014 Prime Minister Modi comes, the project of Jan Aushadhi Kendra, which was introduced in 2008, after nearly 6 years, had only total of 80 Jan Aushadhi Kendras in the entire country. And 2011 census, you had about 640 districts. Now it's gone well over 750, I think. So only 80 in 8 years. Look at the progress, because the art of implementation worked even in this. 2016, it reached 279. 17, it reached 1,080. December 17, it reached 3,000 all over the country. 2020, it reached 6,000 all over the country. 2024, 11,000 Jan Aushadhi Kendras all over the country. in 700 odd districts. What does this Jan Aushadhi Kendra do? The same medicines for blood pressure, diabetes, illness, seasonal fever, flu, everything is sold at 60% lesser than the marketed rates at which branded medicines are sold. It reaches the common man, it reaches everybody who don't have to spend that kind of amount and actually works for the middle class, if anything. And the last point, without taking much of your time before you give me your chit, is 2012, the capital expenditure in this country, Future Ready India. So what is it that Prime Minister Modi does? 2014, as a result of CapEx, you have share of capital to the total expenditure of the state, of the country, increasing at very high level. 16% it was in 2014. 24, it has reached 28%, meaning the total expenditure which goes to revenue expenditure, which is considered not really the ideal expenditure because it doesn't create assets for you. The capital expenditure was only 16 for every 100 rupees in 2014. It's now gone to 28, nearly touching 30. So a third of what you spend is going for creating assets under Prime Minister Modi. Highways, 2014-15, we were building only 12 kilometers per day, whereas now we build 28 kilometers per day. Highways length covered. In 10 years, prior to 2014, we covered only 16,000 kilometers in 10 years, whereas what we've covered now is 48,000 kilometers. So there is more like this which I can go to prove that item by item, the performance in terms of implementation is remarkable only because of the personal interest with which Prime Minister sits to execute each one of them, to make sure that officials are at it, doesn't let go, relentless pursuit to see what I've designed, what this is a particular scheme with a particular objective, so that Future Ready India is not just talking about investments in AI, it's not just talking about making industry 4.0 friendly, it's not talking just about giving more for Anusandhan Kosh so that there will be more research and risk-taking innovations which are so required for the country. All that is happening. So Modi is not driving only for bringing greater technology. He is also making sure the people are ready to take those opportunities. And for that, their basic amenities are literally provided for. And it is not as if he is giving it as a freebie. He's certainly making sure the entire village gets covered. And after the entire village, every household gets covered. And there is no choosing between this or that person. Everybody in that street gets it. Everybody in the village gets it. Optical fibers went to schools. Now they are going even to Panchayat and everybody else. So the art of implementation, how much ever you study it and how much ever you're going to be able to talk about it, is actually a big contribution that Prime Minister Modi is making for generations of Indians. Otherwise, where the world is struggling today, the DPI, the digital public infrastructure, is a point which was raised. G20 was awestruck by us doing so much and also scaling it up. It's one thing for your young people to be innovative and get you solutions, but have you utilized that and have you spread it? Prime Minister Modi has ensured scaling up is shown and common people can adapt to it because he's constantly thinking, is it reaching them in the language in which they want? Is it reaching them at cost-free kind of a situation? So do I invest or do I make private investors put in money in it? So when you constantly go on looking at these kind of factors, common people benefit from it. Scaling up happens automatically. So Future Ready India is to make sure people are given the opportunity beyond the basic necessity on which their time gets wasted. If only India in the last few decades had somebody giving this kind of an attention for implementation, we would have caught the bus in terms of development lots before than what we are doing now. But I'm grateful that we have a Prime Minister who's giving so much attention. Like yesterday, he did mention 24/7. I'm committed for the sake of 2047. Not just a nara. That's what he does. And we as Indians, I think, are absolutely benefiting from this kind of a dedication because all sections are deriving the benefit. The benefit is not as a patronage. It is for you to be able to stand up with that kind of an empowerment so that we can all build a Viksit Bharat by 2047. Thank you very much.